You're listening to Juicy Radio. I'm your host, Tony Bacciagalupo, and in this episode, we'll be talking with Anniken Fjelberg of a co-working space called 657 in Oslo, Norway. Now, Anniken is someone I was introduced to through Liz Elam, the wonderful person behind Juicy. And I didn't know Anniken when we first started our conversation, but by the end of it, I found myself really excited to have had a chance to talk to her and meet her, because the model that they have at their co-working space is one that I think is absolutely essential to the future of so many other co-working spaces out there. You know, I talk to co-working spaces, people who run co-working spaces every week, all the time, really. And one of the things that I keep seeing happening is that people are struggling to attract members, they're struggling to keep members, and they're struggling to keep members engaged. You know, we have this headphones on phenomenon where people come in, they do their work, they put their headphones on, they don't really talk to each other, and they go home. And it's a big problem because that's not what we're in this industry for, right? We're not here to just rent rectangles to people that go on their computers in. And so there needs to be some other element at play here. And what Anniken has done in her co-working community, 657 in Oslo, is build something that really gives people a kind of a different way of opting into a community space where you're not just coming in to rent a workspace, but you're really coming in to participate and be a part of a thing that's bigger than you and that helps you and that you help it and that everyone participates, everyone contributes. And as a result, everyone gets a better experience out of it. And so Anniken's kind of cracked that code a little bit. We're going to dive into that and more about just how things work in her world. And so without further ado, let's get into it. This is a conversation with Anniken Fjelberg of 657 in Oslo, Norway. This is Juicy Radio. Let's do this.
When I met Liz, it was through my neighbor who's an architect. She was talking at a conference. I wasn't there because I was out of town. And it was for, what do you call it? You know, huge corporations owning lots of buildings for enterprises.
Okay.
What do you call that? It's not real estate, is it? That's for homes, but.
Oh, like a commercial real estate or like serviced office space. Yeah.
Yes. So like those huge companies have a conference once a year, and she was speaking there to let them know that co-working is part of the answer to your problem.
Wow, well that's great. I'm curious to know how she came to know about it, but maybe I'll talk to her one day too.
I think actually a colleague of Jim, he's from Houston, my neighbor, and he's the architect, and I think one of his colleagues had met Liz on a conference or something in the States. Oh. It's a small world.
It sure is.
Yeah, it is.
And so you started in 2012 with your husband. And
we are serial entrepreneurs. I have not had it's always been in the creative industry. So the companies I've started have been like design and branding agencies and companies connected to the creative industry. Uh-huh. And so was my husband. So when we chose to do this, it was because we wanted to work with creativity, but we didn't want to work in the Mad Men way, you know. And that was the way that we'd worked in the 90s. We're both over 40. So we've been around for a while. So we had skills and we had the experience building companies. And so when we decided to make a co-working space, it was for the creative industry, like people like you. Mm-hmm. And we didn't know what co-working was at the time. So we just rented a space, 657 square meters. That's hence the name. And we said to our friends, you know, we have too much space. Come sit with us. And within half a year, we understood what co-working was. We were filled up, and we took over the 3 next year. We took over the 4 remaining floors of the building, and now we have the whole building and one more building next to our first one. So now I think we have approximately 2,500 square meters, which you have to add something to get feet, but I'm not sure of the equivalent, but it's a lot. We have 200 coworkers divided into 85 companies. A third of those are companies with only one person, like freelancers and stuff. And we've said that a co-working company in our office cannot be more than 6 people, because then they will sort of take over the floor they're in, So we have 2 companies that are bigger than, or 3 companies that are larger. They are between 12 and 20 people, and we are one of them, because our agency called Superblaze is one of the co-workers, and we have almost 20 people employed now. We started the same year as 657. So we then give like a dedicated floor or a section that is closed to those bigger companies. That's our history in short. Just to finish off, we're 4 employees, 1 manager, 1 coworker responsible, 1 event responsible, and 1 which is working with cleaning and janitor stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, my role is being the chairman of the board, and my husband is running the agency, the creative agency Superblaze, and we both work with both, concepts. But it grew so quickly, we had to sort of divide the responsibilities for a while.
Great.
So that's yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the creative agency side. And I'll tell you, I'm working with a creative agency, a co-working space here in Boulder called Atomic 20. And so it's a very similar model, and it's very interesting to me because I think that it's one of the best sustainable models for co-working. And so I'm very curious to hear more about yours.
Yeah. I would love to hear about that. So what was your question?
Well, the relationship between the creative agency and the co-working space, how do they feed each other? How do they support each other? How's that experience for you?
Yeah. So what we've noticed is that we've learned everything, by doing. So it's been a very interesting and fun and challenging road. And so what we learned was that being co-workers in our own space, and we have a very high degree of service in our space. So we emphasize a lot on cultural activities so that our tenants, they are very well taken care of. And at one point, Superblaze, our creative agency, started really taking off, and we failed to divide the two in a very clear way. So some of the coworkers thought that we were mixing our roles of having the house and having a coworker agency in it. So we became very aware at one point that we are toning down Superblaze. So Superblaze is in our own floor. And the staff, since we're almost 20 people, we have our own culture. But it's important that both Joachim and I are in the house, because we are resources as people. We're resources for many of the coworkers, and we are. I think the average age in our space is probably in the beginning, 32, 33 years old. So we have people that have some experience, but they may be founding their first company. And so we are mentors for many of our coworkers. We even sit on some boards for some of the startups. And I think also it's reasonable to say that some of them are inspired by our journey. So it's actually, it has become, the way we deal with it now, it has become a good solution for Superblaze to be in the building, even though we are as many people as we are.
Wow.
When it comes to the connection between Superblaze and 657, it's rationally, it's a coworker company, but also Joachim and I, my husband and I, we own most of 657, and we own most of Superblaze, and 657 and Superblaze have started a new company together called Out Student Agency, And that's an agency working only with students while they're in school, connecting them with real paying customers that Superblaze is actually mentoring those processes. And what we've learned is that this, what we call our ecosystem, is sort of it's empowering itself, it's fueling itself, because people who hear about 657 and are drawn to 657, they may be customers or employees or freelancers for Superblaze, or they may be mentors for the students in Out, or clients in Superblaze may want to hook up with some of the other coworkers, which is good for them. So many of our clients in Superblaze will tend to have events in our space, or they will join some of our events, working with some of our colleagues there. When it comes to the students, we have all the creative cups and hackathons in our building. So we really notice how building a system like that, a structure like that for our ventures have been a great success for us, and it's made us triple strong compared to if we had done just Superblaze in, a small shop somewhere, So I think it's a system that is strengthening not only us, the founders, but also the people working in the house.
Beautiful. It's really an incredible story, and I think one that a lot of people who are listening to this could derive some value from, because a lot of co-working spaces, don't necessarily have the ecosystem built around the coworkers, and so the support network is something that people are trying to build. I think the fact that you have an agency makes that easier because, not just that, but all these other pieces of this puzzle. And so you've developed really not just a workspace, but kind of an integrated ecosystem. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's a very good thing that we're working actively, all of us, in companies located in the space. So we're not just receptionists and hosts. We're coworkers as well.
That's beautiful. I'm curious, as I listen to you describe this, if you have a particular advice or story that you would want to share about how you were able to architect the development of that ecosystem. Because I'm sure that it happened one bit at a time over the course of years, and it's just continued to kind of progress. But I wonder if do you have a particular philosophy or a particular approach that it's allowed you to architect the development of such a robust ecosystem? We're brand builders. From my background is working with branding, so we knew at once that we had to find our soul, our DNA, what we're about. And in Norway, much of the startup scene is very male-driven, and it has a masculine energy to it, and that's okay. But what we felt was lacking from not only the creative industries that we knew from before was a sense of community, collaboration, sharing, all these things that now soon 5 years ago weren't so natural for that many people. That came a little bit later. So from day one, we started saying that actually, we have a saying that collaboration is the new competition, and it's a sentence that doesn't really make any sense grammatically, but everybody knows what it means. And we have 2 questions, or actually 3 questions, we ask all coworkers before they're let into our house, and that is: are you willing to share? Do you come here to collaborate? And what will be your contribution? So I think that is actually part of our success, that we are emphasizing very much on that. And we have the people we have hired, that's their brief. You need to be part of making this culture. So everybody knows what to do. Okay, so I think there's something that you just said that is particularly important that I think is maybe what's missing from other people's equations, which is that commitment from the beginning that you're asking them, are you going to collaborate? What are you intending to contribute? And I think that process of asking that question early in the very beginning helps to set that expectation that you're coming here to participate in something that needs the contribution of every person who's a part of it. So it's not okay if all you do is just show up and work on your own stuff and leave, right?
No, not in our space. I know that other spaces do that, but in our space, that's not our culture.
See, I think setting that expectation very early on is just so important, because once people get that sense of, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do my work, and that's okay. I'm very busy. I'd love to participate, but I'm too busy. Like, it's very hard to break that culture once everyone has kind of bought into this idea of it's okay to show up and just work and go home and not really do much together. And I think that that's one of the things that so many spaces suffer from now is I should come up with a term for it, but it's that just come in and put on your headphones and go to work disease. So do you find that is challenging for people? Do you get people who are used to expecting that this is going to be a typical office rental and maybe they're put off by this, or are you seeing something different?
No, some people are put off by it, but I think that we are clearing that expectation very early on, so they never really enter our space. And also, I think also that most people know what we're about by now. So when they come to see us, it's either through recommendation, or they read something somewhere, or they were participating on one of our events. And, what happens, hopefully, is that people that maybe shy or that may have a hindrance when it comes to getting to know other people or collaborate because they don't have the network or whatever, they will be inspired or even stimulated to actually get out and do the job. Because this is the only way, the way we see it, to actually build a startup. Have to be part of a community. Or you have to have a big team, but most people don't have a big team at start.
That's right. Yeah, if you don't have a ton of money to start with, or a ton of connections, or something along those lines, then you need a support system around you, right? And I think maybe it's a little underrated. Like, people get the impression that it's possible to just build a business from scratch by yourself in your house without any outside support. And, I think that that's just not true.
It's really hard. It's very hard to do that.
Yeah. It's at least very hard. That's true.
So what's your story now? Where are you moving towards?
Where am I moving towards? Gosh, that's a great question. I appreciate your asking. I think that at this point for me, it's really about finding the ways to systematically help organizers to achieve what you have achieved, which is really making this something that as people are getting into this and building their businesses, that they're not just building workspaces, that there's something more impactful, because in my mind, co-working is going to keep growing, and that's great and it's important. But I think if we stop at just building workspaces, then we're missing a lot of the potential that we have as an industry to really support the shift that is happening in the economy, where people, are no longer working for a traditional company. They are working for themselves, and they need more than just a nice place to work to be able to really succeed and thrive. And in particular, in my mind, making this world accessible to a population of people who maybe aren't ready to make this shift. And so there are people out there now who, they're struggling, and they're wanting maybe to have traditional employment, and they're not used to this new economy. They're not used to the idea of having to support themselves. And there are a lot of people out there who are facing a lot of uncertainty around that. And I think that co-working spaces will make that kind of lifestyle accessible and less scary and possible for a lot of these people. But they have to be cast that way. And right now, I think what we're seeing is just that co-working spaces aren't realizing their potential when it comes to really grabbing that part of the group and saying, look, we're going to make this so much easier for you if you join us, and we're going to systematically help you to become more successful.
Yeah, I agree. And in Norway right now, we have what they call an oil crisis. We're a nation of natural fuels. And so a lot of people are losing their jobs, and co-working spaces are popping up all over the coastline because there are empty offices and people out of work. But still, I think a space that will fill up with people that are looking for jobs will hopefully create a lot of good business opportunities and also startups. But I think you may need also a little more mentoring, perhaps, than you need in a regular co-working space where people come in knowing what they're going to do. Because not all people are set out to create their own business, even though they're out of a job. And if you've never done it before, I think it's very, very good to have a mentor to ask for advice, get some shortcuts. So spaces like that, and we have that in our space too, a mentoring system where people can sign up for free mentoring once a month with 3 different mentors. So I think that should be part of a community like that.
I love that. That sounds like a really powerful program. How do you get the mentors to participate? Do they just volunteer?
They volunteer, and they are coworkers too. But we have coworkers, even though our average age are in early 30s. I think our youngest coworker is 20 or something, and our oldest is 60 plus. And so we have a lot of different competency in the house. Everyone is somehow a startup or a creative industry player. But the mentors we have not right now are some of them are brand experts. Some have been like CMOs in huge national corporations. Some are trained coaches. So it will vary. We've had people being mentors for half a year, and then some people have been for a year. Myself, I've been a mentor always in the space. So, you need different mentors for different people, and everyone should actually have more than one mentor.
Absolutely. I think as I reflect on my own entrepreneurial experiences, I think, having a mentor, having several mentors, and those mentors may change over the course of time, is just absolutely necessary, because without it, we don't have enough experience, any one of us, to be able to foresee where we're going in terms of our own careers. And it really, it would be tremendously helpful, I think, to others to be able to, benefit from that perspective. Absolutely.
And I think sometimes reverse mentoring, as we call it, when a young person mentors someone older, is also very valuable, because young people today know so much more about the digital sphere than someone in their 50s or 60s maybe. So it goes both ways. It's about competency and not age.
Yeah, absolutely. And even between generations, as you're saying, there's a lot of valuable information to be transferred between the generations. And I've always thought that that's been a tremendous opportunity for co-working communities in general, to just simply bring people from different backgrounds together, and for everyone to benefit from that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's all super terrific. So I'm a little tight on time because I know we have another meeting coming in here soon. But before that happens, what would you say is your perspective in terms of the bigger picture of the economy, where things are going, where things need to be going?
In what sense?
Well, in terms of work, so you're seeing that the people who work in your community are doing something that's pretty radically different from the way that they were working even a few years ago. And so in terms of that, where do you think all of this is headed? Is it headed somewhere great? Is there something scary about where all this is going? Or, what do you think about where this is all going?
Well, I think that we all have a lot to learn from each other because the coworker movement, to call it that, has a lot of things to teach the established, commercial industries, the huge corporations, the way we have been thinking traditionally about business and office spaces and how people work. And in Norway, at least, I can see now that we have a lot of focus on power coupling, where you couple up a huge corporation with a young startup, and it's oftentimes an incubator that does that. So that's very helpful for both parties. I also think that there is a generation shift. Young people today, from my perspective, seems to want to work in a different way. They are less afraid of starting, their own company, and it's a world where we're now connected in such a different way than when I started my career in the mid '90s, where I didn't even have email when I started working. So the opportunities right now are so huge for every one individual that innovation will happen anywhere. So when it comes to the culture in our space, which is about sharing, you can hook that up with link to the sharing economy. And that's, I think, a very exciting, I don't know if I want to call it a trend anymore because it's getting to be the norm, but it's exciting to see us because I do believe that we need to have a sharing economy in a way that where everyone is part of the pie, so to speak. And that we just don't shift the power and from corporations to startups, and that they keep everything for themselves. I really believe that everyone should be sharing their knowledge, their profits, and their about Elon Musk, but he's an open source guy, and that I think is the way forward.
Beautifully put, Anniken, and I appreciate that. I think that attitude of sharing economy and not just sharing economy in the way that it's been talked about, but a sharing culture, right? And the idea that we can really benefit from being more collaborative is a 21st century concept. It's one that's going to continue to grow. It's more mature than I think sort of the brutish business practice that we sort of saw dominate the 20th century. So, I'm excited. I'm excited for what you're doing. I really look forward to one day being able to come visit. And I'm excited to hear more about where you go from here. I guess that's a great question. Maybe just to wrap up with is where to from here for you? What's your plan for next year and beyond?
Well, right now we're actually launching a mentoring software. So we're developing quite a few things for, our community and the rest of the world. Also looking to expand, but I must say I had a very inspiring meeting with Liz when she was in Norway. And after having that talk with her, it seems like a very wise thing for us right now to think, niche and more boutique kind of strategy. So our expansion will mainly be in our, neighborhood and focusing on our culture and really, really working on, keeping and gardening what we have grown to become.
Did you say a mentoring software?
Yes, mentoring software.
Is there any chance that you'll have an English language version?
Absolutely. That's our pilot the MVP will be in English.
Well, sign me up for the beta. I'm so excited to hear more.
Yes, Tony, I will. And please come to Norway to visit us. That would be great to have you.
I would love to take you up on that. If that's something I could do, I will certainly be in touch. I would love to come visit.
That's wonderful.
Great. Well, Anniken, thank you so much for taking the time. This turned out to be fantastic despite our technical difficulties. And I appreciate you making the time to talk to me.
Well, the pleasure is mine, Tony. And good luck with your ventures now.
Wonderful. All right. Thanks, Anniken.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. So that was Anniken Fjelberg from 659 in Oslo, Norway. Just an amazing story and certainly some inspiration for me. I got to think about just some of how she managed to do what she did, and it's just really great stuff. So I hope you were inspired as I was. If you would like to talk more about it, shoot me an email, tony@nwc.co. That's November Whiskey Charlie .CharlieOliver. And yeah, good stuff. Catch you next time on Juicy Radio. Thanks. Take care.
And that'll do it for this episode of Juicy Radio. I hope that was an inspiring conversation for you. Again, I think it's super important that we all be looking at ways to be incorporating that kind of model where we have more people involved in more than just working in the space, but really being able to, right from the moment of onboarding, give them a way to really opt into being a part of your community and contributing their talent, and knowing that the members in that space are available to them to help you, help that person as well. So that's it for this episode. Check the website, gcuc.co, for upcoming tickets. I know right now, as of this recording, we've got early bird tickets up for Juicy USA, which is going to be in May of 2017. Juicy tickets are not expensive if you get them in advance. So I know I would always tend to put this off, but it's really, really great if you can just suck it up, get that ticket now, get it at the super cheap price. You're going to really appreciate it later. If you know you're going to go anyway, just do it. Just get it done. And so head to gcuc.co to find out more about that. And also, now's a great time to head to the Facebook page for Juicy. It's all spelled out on Facebook, Global Co-working Unconference Conference on Facebook. And head on there, and there are conversations happening about what kinds of content you want to see in the next conference. So make sure you get on there, have your voice heard, let people know what you want happening at the next conference. And you know I'll be there, so I'll be excited to see you. And in the meantime, keep doing good work. Keep helping other people feel empowered and be exposed to what's possible in great communities, and just keep doing and keep being awesome. Thanks. We'll catch you next time.